The smell of bitter coffee and new paper was omnipresent in the Technosys office, mixed with the constant hum of servers and the frantic clicking of keyboards. For Alex, a 22-year-old intern with autism, every sound was like a hammer hitting his head, every fluorescent light a knife in his eyes. He was hunched over his desk, noise-canceling headphones covering his ears, his fingers tracing invisible patterns on the smooth surface of his desk. His task was simply to organize network cables, a repetitive activity that calmed him. The atmosphere in the engineering department was tense, with raised voices and the sound of paper being crumpled. There was a critical problem. The bank's new security system, Technosys' crown jewel, had crashed. 3 senior engineers with years of experience and degrees on the wall banged their heads against the screen, cursing. "It's not possible. It's a bug that doesn't exist," shouted one of them, Ricardo, the team leader. The businessman, Mr. Augusto, owner of Technosys, entered the room, his face red with contained rage. "I want a solution, and I want it now. This contract is worth millions." Alex, oblivious to the pressure, felt a subtle vibration, an anomalous pattern in the network that communicated with his brain in a way that no one else understood. He raised his head. What did that mean? Could the silence that isolated him from the world be the key to solving the chaos that none of them could see? Nighttime, in his small, rented apartment, was the only time Alex allowed himself to express his innermost thoughts, typing on his personal blog under the pseudonym Synaptic Bridge. No one read it, but it was his way of processing the world. Today was another day of invisibility and forced social silence. I hear the laughter, the comments, the whispers. I see the looks of pity or disdain when my stims become more evident. The engineers call me the cable organizer, the weird intern. I know I'm good at what I do, that my mind works in a way they don't understand. I see patterns where they see chaos. I hear frequencies they ignore. But no one asks me. No one sees me. I'm just a body occupying a cubicle. My parents, Claudia and Fernando, try hard, I know. But they also get frustrated. My mother is always trying to normalize me, forcing me to make eye contact, to speak louder, to participate in social events that exhaust me. My father is proud of my photographic memory, but he doesn't understand that it's part of a much bigger package, that the way I process information is different. He wanted me to be a conventional genius, not the weird genius. I wish they knew how much it hurts to be called weird, incapable, sick. I wish Ricardo, Mr. Augusto, the whole world understood that my mind isn't broken. It just works in a unique way. I feel like I'm trapped in a fish tank, and people bang on the glass, study me, judge me, but never try to come in and swim with me. The problem with the system today, I saw it. I knew where it was. But who would believe the silent intern? I just wanted a chance to show what I can do without being judged for the way I exist. I swear that one day I'll show them the true capacity of my brain. Alex's words, typed on the screen, were a cry of silenced intelligence, a promise that his potential would finally be revealed. After college, the search for a job in the tech field became an ordeal for Alex. At every interview, his impeccable resume collided with the barrier of his personality. The first light came with the recommendation of a renowned career coach, Dr. Vivian, who promised to polish the image of people with autism for the job market. "Alex, your problem isn't your intelligence, it's your presentation. We need to make you more sociable, more conventional," she said, in a tone of voice that brooked no argument. Alex, desperate for a chance, spent his last savings on exhausting sessions of mock interviews, forced eye contact and small talk training. He felt like an actor in a play where he didn't know the script. The result? More anxiety, more exhaustion, and the feeling that he was being forced to be someone he wasn't. Dr. Vivian dismissed him, claiming that he wasn't engaged enough in his own transformation. His second hope came from Technosys, a cutting-edge technology company known for its culture of innovation. Mr. Augusto, the CEO, gave a motivational speech about the importance of diversity and new talent. Alex, with his passion for systems and his ability to see patterns, was accepted as an intern. It was the chance he had been waiting for. However, the reality was brutal. The internship program was actually a way to get cheap labor for repetitive and unchallenging tasks. Alex was relegated to organizing cables and basic maintenance, tasks that did not require his analytical skills. Senior engineers, such as Ricardo, saw him as a problem, someone who needed constant supervision and treated him with condescension. The biggest disappointment, however, came from the lack of mentoring and invisibility. No one in the engineering department cared about developing Alex's potential. He was just the weird intern who organizes cables. The diversity that Mr. Augusto preached was a facade. On the day the bank's security system crashed, Alex saw the anguish of the engineers, Ricardo's panic, Mr. Augusto's fury. He saw the flaw, the pattern that no one else saw. But he, the invisible intern, had no voice. The false hopes of inclusion and opportunity only served to sink him into even greater frustration, making him a silent witness to a problem that he, and only he, could solve. The air in the Technosys engineering department was thick with tension. The central bank's security system, the crown jewel of the company, was down. Millions were at stake. 3 senior engineers, Ricardo, the team leader, Mariana, the network specialist, and João, the chief programmer, banged their heads against their keyboards, their brows furrowed and their faces red with frustration. "It's not a code error. I've checked it 1,000 times," Ricardo yelled, pounding the table. Mariana muttered, "The network is clear. There's no block." João typed frantically but aimlessly. Mr. Augusto, the CEO, entered the room every 5 minutes, his eyes bloodshot, his face pale with anger. "I want a solution. I didn't hire 3 expensive engineers to see you scratching. Your heads. Our contract with the bank is hanging by a thread." Alex, the autistic intern, was there, silently organizing cables, invisible, a whisper on the edge of chaos. He saw. He heard. He understood the pattern of the error. Alex's humiliation was daily, subtle but constant. Ricardo, the team leader, treated him with condescension. "Alex, have you finished organizing those cables? Do it again, more aligned. We don't have time for your ramblings," he said, ignoring the sparkle in Alex's eyes as he studied the complex codes. Mariana, although less aggressive, simply ignored him, as if he were part of the furniture. João, on the other hand, made inside jokes with his colleagues about the intern who only knows how to organize marbles, referring to the tangled cables. Alex felt every word, every look of contempt. His autism, which made him see the world in such a unique and logical way, was interpreted as a disability. The last straw came when Ricardo, exasperated by the system problem, walked past Alex and pushed him slightly to access a server. "Get out of the way, Alex. Don't get in the way of people who are actually working." The phrase, spoken angrily, pierced Alex's heart. At that moment, he, the cable organizer, the weirdo, the invisible one, had an epiphany. He would no longer be a passive witness. Anger drove him to do something he had never done before. He stood up, removed his headphones, and walked toward the screen where the error persisted. He needed to show them the truth that no one wanted to tell them. Alex's revenge would not be with shouting, but with irrefutable proof of his intelligence, which would silence everyone. The air in the engineering department froze. Alex, the invisible intern, standing in front of the screen with his headphones in his hands, was an unusual sight. Ricardo, incredulous, was the first to react. "Alex, what are you doing? Get out of there. This is no time for your quirks." Mariana and João looked on, curious but with an air of mockery. Mr. Augusto, tense, just watched. Alex, ignoring Ricardo's rebuke, approached the keyboard. His fingers, which had previously organized cables with obsessive precision, now hovered over the keys, ready for action. His turnaround was not in words, but in a pure demonstration of genius. Alex began to type, not randomly, but with a speed and precision that would make any experienced programmer pale. He accessed lines of code that Ricardo, Mariana, and João had ignored, bypassing the complex interfaces and going straight to the root of the problem. His eyes, previously fixed on the void or the cracks in the ceiling, now shone with focused intensity, reading lines and lines of algorithm in seconds, identifying patterns that the others couldn't process. Ricardo tried to intervene again. "Alex, stop that. You're going to mess everything up." But Mr. Augusto, intrigued by the intern's demeanor and the almost religious silence that had fallen over the room, raised his hand, signaling Ricardo to stop. "Leave him alone just for a minute." Alex continued typing. He didn't look for obvious or routine solutions. His autistic mind, which saw details and anomalies with superhuman clarity, had detected an almost imperceptible syntax error in an obscure line of code, a flaw that 3 experienced engineers, with their linear, protocol-bound thinking, had completely overlooked. It was such a basic bug, but so well hidden in the complexity of the system that it had gone unnoticed by conventional logic. In less than 5 minutes, Alex made a small change, a single character, a semicolon, and then he typed a reboot command. The monitor, which had been displaying a bright red error message, flashed, and to the astonishment and stunned silence of everyone in the room, the screen lit up, displaying the message, "System online, all operational functions." The problem that had paralyzed a bank for hours and frustrated the engineering team for days was solved. Alex's revenge was not with shouting but with irrefutable proof of his intelligence, which silenced everyone, exposing the truth that true ability lies not in titles, but in the mind. The silence in the Technosys department was broken only by the sound of Mr. Augusto letting out a deep sigh of relief and disbelief. Ricardo, Mariana, and João's eyes were wide, fixed on the screen displaying the online system. They couldn't believe what they had witnessed. The intern, the cable organizer, had solved what they, the experienced engineers, couldn't. The first victory was the look of respect and admiration on Mr. Augusto's face. He approached Alex, who had returned to organizing his cables as if nothing extraordinary had happened. "Alex?" The CEO's voice was choked with emotion. How did you do that?" Alex, speechless, just picked up a small notepad and wrote, "The error was in a semicolon on line 743, a pattern that repeated itself in non-sequential blocks, causing an infinite loop in the data validation." The clarity and conciseness of the explanation left Mr. Augusto even more impressed. Then came the awkward silence and recognition from the engineers. Ricardo, his face red, approached Alex. "Alex, I'm sorry for the way I treated you. You are brilliant." Mariana and João, visibly embarrassed, nodded in agreement. For the first time, Alex was not the odd one out, but the silent hero. The biggest victory, however, was the change in perception. Mr. Augusto called a meeting with the entire team. Not only did he publicly praise Alex, explaining to everyone how the intern had saved the $1 million contract, but he also announced a new project, the creation of an anomalous pattern analysis division to be led by Alex. The cable organizer became the head of a new team with the mission of identifying and solving complex problems that conventional logic could not. Alex, the autistic intern who had been underestimated and ignored, had earned not only a position but the respect of everyone, proving that true intelligence has no shape or voice, but resides in the ability to see what no one else sees. The impact of Alex's genius reverberated throughout Technosys, not as a scandal, but as a profound lesson about prejudice and ability. Ricardo, Mariana, and João, the engineers who had previously doubted and mocked him, were forced into painful introspection. They saw their degrees and years of experience overshadowed by the intuition and unique logic of an intern they considered inferior. This humiliation, however, opened their eyes to the importance of humility and diversity of thought. They became the first to seek Alex's knowledge, to learn from his unique way of processing information, realizing that true collaboration lies in valuing all minds. For Alex, the turnaround was transformative. He felt the weight of responsibility in his new leadership position, but also the lightness of finally being seen, respected, and valued for who he truly was. His repetitive movements, his difficulty maintaining eye contact, his peculiar way of expressing himself, everything that made him strange, were now understood as part of his genius. He wasn't a sick person to be cured. He was an individual with an extraordinary mind, just different. Mr. Augusto, the CEO, had an epiphany. He realized that his search for talent was limited by his own biases. The incident with Alex taught him that real innovation comes from accepting neurodiversity, from valuing minds that challenge the conventional. He transformed Technosys into a truly inclusive environment, investing in awareness and support programs for employees with different neurotypes. Alex's revenge was not to punish those who underestimated him, but to prove his worth, and the worth of all those who, like him, are ignored by society. The truth that no one wanted to tell was that intelligence does not come in a single form, and that the greatest disability is the prejudice that prevents us from seeing hidden potential. Life at Technosys has not returned to the way it was before, and the transformation, while challenging, has been profoundly positive and lasting. Alex, the former intern cable organizer, now head of the Anomalous Pattern Analysis Division, has become a respected mentor, admired for his unique ability to solve complex problems. He has built an inclusive team, valuing every talent and every way of thinking. Ricardo, Mariana, and João, the engineers who once underestimated him, became his closest collaborators, learning to see the world through Alex's eyes and to value neurodiverse intelligence. Mr. Augusto, in turn, transformed Technosys into a model of inclusion and innovation, proving that a company's true wealth lies in the diversity of its minds. Alex continued with his repetitive movements and his peculiar way of communicating, but now he did so with the tranquility of someone who was accepted and understood. His story is not just about an autistic intern who solved a complex problem. It is about the silent power of genius, the blindness of prejudice, and the transformative power of acceptance. It is about how a different mind can uncover truths that conventional logic cannot reach, redefining what it means to be capable. Alex's fate, which seemed sealed by invisibility, was rewritten by the overwhelming power of his mind and his ability to see patterns where others saw only chaos. Not all intelligence screams. Sometimes it manifests itself in the silence of a focused gaze, in the repetition of a gesture, in the ability to see patterns where no one else does. And the greatest power is not the position one holds, but the truth that is revealed and the dignity with which one lives. Because love and acceptance do not silence those who are different, they amplify every peculiarity, transforming disability into an unshakable strength. If the story of Alex, the intern who silenced 3 engineers and saved $1 million contract, touched your heart, if you felt the pain of prejudice and the power of misunderstood genius, then this message is for you. Don't let this powerful story end here, in your mind. Leave your comment and share your thoughts. What did this story awaken in you? What lesson do you take away for your life? Share this story with someone who needs to hear this truth, this message of hope and courage, today. And if you want to continue to be inspired by stories that transform and remind us of the power of acceptance and neurodiversity, then please subscribe to our channel, join our community, and help build a world where all minds, conventional or neurodiverse, are seen, valued, celebrated, and above all, understood. Your voice, your engagement, your empathy can make a difference. Let's work together to uncover the hidden patterns of prejudice and celebrate true intelligence in all its forms.